What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi and Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking through week 12 of the NFL, excuse me. I'm actually excited about this week. I feel like there's a couple spots that I really like that are getting lower ownership. I had a good week 11 last week, so ready to get after it. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we jump into this slate?
You know, the first thing that I noticed, or at least when I was going through it today, was that there weren't that many like clear sources of value that people were going to pile on. You know, not that there aren't good plays that people wouldn't pile on, but it's not like there's some real like super cheapo that's, I think, completely underpriced, I think. But we'll just kind of take a look at it. I ran some early sims to see what I would get, and it was funny. You know, what happened was last night I ran the projections and I wrote down literally on like this little whiteboard I have like top plays as far as like quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, just because I knew we were going to want to talk about that today.
Yeah.
So I wrote all that down, and then I'm like, no, I wonder if this is kind of the way I look at hockey. I wonder if there are stacks that are just going to show up, you know, just kind of organically. You know, if there's like a good quarterback value and a good running back value, whatever. And I didn't really find that. Like I had like a list of like 12 quarterbacks, like 12 running backs, like 10 receivers, and only like one of the like receiver tight ends even matched up with even one of the quarterbacks. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see whether that means that it's going to be a slate that didn't involve a lot of stacking. You know, maybe I guess that's possible, or the opposite, or maybe you're supposed to force in stacks of guys with guys that aren't projecting all that well, you know, to kind of make that correlation work. I don't know. It seems like I think that's a pretty like fair, you know, non-trick slate. You know, unless we could spend. Depends how much time we start talking about like Tommy DeVito, for example. Right. You know, aside from that, which is kind of like a weird conversation to have, but it seems like it's like a very, very standard, type slate.
Yep, I kind of agree with you, and I'm sure there might be some news that we hear about later this week that might change things, but as of right now, I agree that there's not a whole lot of value out there that's obvious, and there's one game in particular that I'm just sort of shocked that at the current ownership is where it is. And we'll get to it, I think, at some point.
You're shocked that it's high or low?
I'm shocked that there's not more of it. I feel like it's one game that feels like a huge standout to me. And
well, let's start with a pretty ugly one, I think. So Kansas City against Carolina. I don't recall, and because I'm a genius and I put it all on a whiteboard and it was at home, I can't see it when I wrote down. But I do remember. So in this game, the only guy that I think that I was coming up with were two things. Maybe Kelsey as tight end for Kansas City. And then even on Carolina, I wasn't really getting to much of anything except, I was getting some of the Coker at 3,700. I was getting some of that. But overall, it feels like, I don't know, 27 to 10. I always keep saying that, but that's what it feels like.
Or like maybe like 38 to 3. Happening too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, there is a difference actually. 38 to 3, you can play Kansas City guys. 27-10, maybe not.
Yeah, I like Pacheco, assuming that he's back in a full go.
What do I know? I didn't even know that was in the offing.
Yeah, so he's questionable officially, but like they're pretty consistent with how they treat if they've got their number one guy, they're going to use him as a number one guy, and he is their number one guy. It's not Kareem Hunt. So while Kareem Hunt will get some work, whatever, I think if Pacheco's back, he's a good play. And I just want to point out that it's interesting that people will play Tommy DeVito at 4K, but they're not going to play Bryce Young at 4,600.
Did I lose you?
Can you hear me? Oh, back now?
I lost you after you said it's surprising.
It's surprising that nobody's playing. Sorry about that. I don't know. My internet just freaked out for a minute. But no, I was just surprised that no one will. Look, I'll keep Bryce Young in my player pool. Is all I'm saying. Just because he's so cheap and the game script should allow him to do some things. All right, Minnesota against your Bears. No, I'm just kidding. Against the Chicago team.
Well, it's funny that you say that, but like, if you didn't like that last week against the Patriots, you get to try it again. Because the Bears, for some reason, are showing up 30% owned again, against like an actual playoff team. You know, it's a little different spot, and they're still getting pounded. What are they, 2,000? I mean, why are they such 2,500?
The Bears defense, yeah.
Against a Darnold who's very can be very conducive to giving up points. But I don't know about that. You know, I don't know. I again, you catch me playing 25% Bears defense, you just I'll turn in my DFS man card. I guess I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, that seems a lot.
As far as guys to play, I don't remember seeing much except for maybe Justin Jefferson from this game, and even still, he hasn't really put up the big ceiling yet. I don't think. I don't know.
A couple times, but not recently.
I think Minnesota just win this game and get out of Dodge. You know, I don't know if it's going to be a big shootout type situation. And although, again, as you saw last week, I have no problem taking shots with Caleb Williams. You know, I like playing the young guys, and Dunze young, and Moore is still good or whatever. What's his name is really good. The Flores and the Minnesota defense, and it's a tough spot. It's a tough enough spot to probably keep me off of Chicago's offense. So for me, probably not too much out of this game. We always play Hawkinson, I guess, but aside from that, I don't really have too much of this game.
Yeah, I like Hawkinson and I like Jefferson. That's all I got other than defenses from this game. I don't really even have much to talk about at length. I guess you could think about Aaron Jones, but not. And just nobody quite fits like a priority situation for me. Aaron Jones, I guess, is interesting enough, but I like the Hawkinson. I think he's going to be a lot more expensive soon enough, and he would be my favorite play in this game. All right, next up we have Tennessee and Houston.
So far, we haven't really even got to a game that we're really particularly interested in.
I love that because I'm going to be there's a game that I'm going to be all over.
There'll be some. Okay, Tennessee Houston. Yeah, Houston's passing game wasn't great last week, but wasn't. I mean, it's not that it was bad. They just didn't really. I don't know. It didn't really go to it too much. I don't know. It was, they basically just owned Dallas like the whole game. I mean, I don't know. I do think Mixon is still a good play. So I do like that. I'm not really getting to too much of the Houston passing game though. Aside, so it's for me, it's going to be just Mixon right now. The Tennessee side, I'll just keep playing. What's his name? Calvin Ridley. He's like their only player, I think. So I like Calvin Ridley, and I like Mixon from the Houston side. And I imagine Houston defense is going to be pretty popular. I like that also.
Yeah, I have a little like I like Mixon in this game, but again, he's going to be 1,000,000% owned, and there's definitely pivots you can make. But he's been great. There's no denying it. Tennessee, not usually a team that I love to take running backs against, but this year's been a little bit different. So I'm in on Mixon, and I'm okay with Ridley if he plays. If he doesn't play, which I think it's a real questionable, I think we play Westbrook or Keeney, and I think that's probably a pretty reasonable route to go.
I have. By the way, I have. I mean, you mentioned Mixon going to be 1,000,000,000%. I have him just kind of tied with 4 other guys.
Okay.
Top guy. You have him standing out as being the most owned guy?
Saberson's got him at 28%. I don't know if he'll be the most owned, but he'll be right there with those other guys, and we'll get to that.
I got him just at 21.
Yeah, probably. I think it'll go a little higher. Just people are, they see what he's been doing lately and all that stuff. So I think it might be a little bit higher, but that's just a guess. All right, next up is Detroit and Indianapolis, and this is the game I was referring to.
Yeah, so I have this is to my point I was making earlier. Let's start with the Indianapolis side. So I do have Anthony Richardson as one of the top point per dollar plays on the slate. And unfortunately, I don't have really the receivers projecting all that great, but I think it's not going to matter. I think I'm going to have to play him anyway, so I think that Pittman being 1,000 less than Downs is interesting. I think obviously he's probably going to get higher owned than Downs as because of that. But I have no problem playing all of them. Playing Richardson with Downs and Pittman. I also don't have any problem with playing Jonathan Taylor at 7,100. Now it's funny. I mentioned all this, and what this is now presuming is that I'm going to be able to do something against Detroit, who's they certainly have a really good team, so they're going to have a good defense also. But I don't know. I think this game can kind of shoot out a little bit. It's in the Dome, and once Detroit starts scoring, if they keep scoring, then Indianapolis is going to keep scoring. I think this game can go off, and I think those guys from Indianapolis all look good. Detroit, I mean, what can I say? They just put up 50. You know what I mean? And yet still, I just have trouble. It's funny. I have trouble playing these split running backs where they're both kind of expenses. It turns out, like some of my best lineups last week, I ended up playing both of them, which is kind of amazing that can work out on a full slate. And then St. Brown, sure, but I think the guy that you really want relative to his price or whatever is going to be Jameson Williams. I think at 6K, he would be my favorite of this Detroit guys. Laporta, I presume that he's back, right? He's going to look good. I think overall, I think the game could put up a lot of points. So I presume this is one of the games you were thinking about. I think it can go off.
Yeah, I actually don't. I understand they're expensive, and for good reason, Detroit. But like, I don't care. I've seen it. I've seen enough to know that when you have a team that they want to put their foot down, they can do it. And this matchup allows them to do it. They're back in the domes. It's just all of it looks like a great spot for Detroit to be. So I'll be overweight everything in this game. I think one of the things I'm considering doing this week for any sort of multi-builds is like just assigning a minimum of 25% of this as a game stack.
Sounds good to me, right?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, and you know, I had a buddy, and this is what happens. You know, he plays in a big season-long league, and he was asking me whether he should pick up Tommy DeVito or Anthony Richardson this week. And I actually laughed. I thought that was hilarious that he even had to think about it, because Anthony Richardson has a ceiling, and I love him in this matchup. Even if it's garbage time, I feel like he can get there. You know, Detroit might be up 35-0 at some point, and you get the garbage time points. I think that's totally on the table here. I just feel like I want to be overweight every part of it. I personally like Downs better than Pittman, and I know he's more expensive. And I also like Alec Pierce a little bit. So I'm interested in every aspect of this game. It's where I'm going to have most of my builds. All right, New England and Miami.
Yes. So one of the guy who I think is probably going to be the highest, well, at least competing for highest owned running back is going to be A-Chain. 7,500. Again, it's one of the more expensive. Well, actually, he's less expensive than Mixon and McCaffrey, actually. So he's not really that expensive. So 7,500, I think, makes perfect sense here. They're probably, I haven't even looked, but I'm sure they're 6-7 point favorite in this game.
Yeah.
So game script looks pretty good. Miami likes to run the ball. And even when they're not running the ball, they can find A-Chain out of the backfield. I think he's an elite play. I think that Jonnu Smith continues to be a great play for Miami at tight end. And Tyreek Hill, he's going to get 30 one of these days. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what happens is I know it's hard to project, but every once in a while he's just going to break one for 80. You know, he just hasn't done it yet. You know what I mean? Like he's just too fast, and he's just too all over the field to not have that happen eventually. Mm-hmm. And once you get that 80, that's like an extra 15 points on top of what he's been doing. You know?
Right.
So listen, I don't think the wrist is a big deal. They even when you looked at the DraftKings note here, it said they kept him out of practice, but they just think it's just because of just workload management or whatever, which is fine.
Yep.
It's and I do think that one of these days Jalen Waddle is going to do something. Just they have a very good offense. They have a very good system. They got Tua, when he gets his timing going, can get it going. Every once sometimes it doesn't look good. It just doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very high, not high variance. It's a well-tuned offense. I mean, it's got to be in sync. And when it is in sync, it's one of the best offenses in the league. And when it's not in sync, it's a little struggling to watch, honestly. But I do like all of it. And as far as the New England side, I think the New England side is all good too. I think I like Ramondre at 5,900. He's he's the big guy there, and you could say Gibson, whatever, but I like him. And all those New England wide receivers that people kind of struggled over last week, they're all still cheap. The Butte is still 3,500. Bourne is 3,600.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did it freeze? Now I think yours might be frozen. Uh-oh. We're having some technical difficulties today. Wow, what's going on with this? It's just cut out on sheets here. So I'm going to keep rolling along until we get him back. I'm just going to let him know real quick that he's cut out. And I don't know why we're having so much technical difficulty today, to be honest with you. I know Sheets was getting a modem replaced, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I'm going to keep rolling along. We're going to use my screen. I'm just going to stop this share and jump over the other one until we get Sheets back, just because we're in the interest of getting this out there. Sorry about this, guys. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to keep going for the games. Yeah, I didn't say my part of this game yet, but I do like this Miami New England game. I think this is another game that I'm happy to go after a little bit. It's interesting that everybody played Boutte last week and no one will play him this week. I wouldn't mind taking a shot there. You can see I want to be over the field on Tyreek Hill. I agree with Sheik's assessment, and everybody's going to play the running part of this. So maybe we play the passing game. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet, but I like the idea of playing the passing game a little bit in this on this one. All right. Let's go to Denver but no, hold on. What did I miss from the morning ones? Oh, Dallas and Washington. Sorry about this. I'm blowing up left and right. Dallas and Washington. Brian Robinson, I get it. I actually want to make sure I have some of it, but at 5,600 is too cheap. It feels a little bit weird to see him at 30% ownership. I don't remember ever seeing him like that. It also feels weird to see CeeDee Lamb at almost 30% ownership. I don't mind these plays. I just am not quite as high on them, maybe. What about we flip the script in this one and we go for the passing game with just the Daniels to McLaurin? And I don't see why we wouldn't take a shot again with Noah Brown. But I kind of like a little bit of Jaden Daniels. I don't know what to do with the Cowboys. I guess you can play CD as a run back, but I'm not sure I want to do that right now. I do like the McLaurin at low ownership, and I want to get overweight that. So that is my take for this one. Is maybe both this and Miami. I feel like you can play the passing game to get a little bit different. All right, jumping over, we're going to talk about Tampa Bay and the Jets. I'm sorry, the Giants. This is you have the Tommy DeVito, which I think is going to be more popular than it's being projected to be right now. It's just the 4K flat. It allows you to do other stuff when you don't have value on a slate. So I get it. You're just not looking at much of a ceiling. And look, if he gets you 18, that's probably okay, as long as nobody else goes completely nuts. And Giants defense hasn't been bad enough to where I want to play Tampa here, but I'm not sure what to do without knowing for sure about Mike Evans. We don't know about Darius Slayton. So this is a TBD game if I've ever seen one. I really am not sure which way it's going to go. So I want to wait to see about Evans and Slayton. If Evans is a go, I might take a shot on it at low ownership, but that would be one. I don't have any hot takes on that specific game. Do we have Sheets back? Here he is.
Somehow.
All right, made it back. All I talked about was the Tampa Bay and the Giants.
Hang on. Did you like the Miami New England?
Yeah, I did. I like the Miami New England. I agreed with you, and I like
the New England side too.
What's that?
You like the New England side too?
Yeah, a little bit. I just don't like I feel like we're guessing. I don't mind going back to Boutte, but I feel like we're guessing. I think Hunter Henry and Drake May makes for a fine stack running back with Tyreek Hill instead of A-Chain. I think that's a good way to get different. I like the passing part of that game. I think that's the other game that I have an interest in.
Did you talk about Kendrick Bourne at all or no?
It's just to me. I don't know what the hell's going on with their receivers, and I'm not sure they entirely do. It's not like any of these guys is getting a million targets. Kendrick Bourne had a big play last week. Okay. Demario Douglas has usually been their most consistent receiver. Boutte got involved later in the game last week. Jalen Polk will probably get run as well. It just feels like we're playing roulette with them. I don't have any strong takes on the New England receivers. It just feels, and by the way, that's credit to May too. Like I don't think it really matters all that much to him who's out there. He doesn't need he's just spreading it around. And but Hunter Henry would be the one I would want to play.
So when you talked about Giants Tampa, I mean DeVito and Neighbors, I mean I would imagine that's who DeVito is going to be looking for with his 4K price tag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the pair two of those together certainly makes some sense.
Especially against a team that gets lit up in the air in general. They're the worst team against the pass. Basically.
How are they against the run this year?
Excellent.
They are.
Well, sorry, they're not as good as they have been, but they're still good. It's been weird because their big guys have missed some games, so the numbers are a little skewed. But when the big guys are available, they've been pretty solid.
Is Tyrone Tracy projecting well? He was doing so well too. I remember they went on a bye after a terrible loss.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't play running backs against Tampa Bay in general. That's just my thing. That's my only reason for not doing it. I actually think that the Rashad White might be interesting on the other side. It's an interesting game. I feel this is the most wish-washy I feel about any game this week. I could see myself having a lot of it because the ownership looks low. I could see myself having none of it because I actually think the ownership will climb. And we got Mike Evans possibly coming back, who's like the most consistent receiver in the history of the NFL, and no one's going to play him. If he does come back, I'll take my chances with Mike Evans. I actually like Evans better than I like Neighbors this week.
I think that if you're a cash game player, which I'm not, right? If you're not playing Tommy DeVito, there's like a couple of other guys you could play, and one of them is this next game. I mean, it's a totally different way to go. But Jaden Daniels in the Washington Dallas game, I mean, looks like Dallas is giving up. They've given up, I guess. Giving up. They have no players anymore. It's like no players had no motivation. Kind of a bad combination. And they're running into a team that's revitalized. I'm not saying they're as great. Maybe they're not quite as good as I thought they might be, but they're still good. I mean, they're still going to be competing for the playoff spots, right? Mm-hmm. So Jaden Daniels himself looks pretty good. I mean, he looks very good. And then you have McLaurin, who's not projecting all that great, but he's their top guy, so I have no problem with that. The guy who's really, I think, going to get crammed I would imagine is Brian Robinson Jr. Coming back as the lead back in a 10-point favored game at under 6K. Now he's not going to get all of it. Like Eckler's earned, usage, right? So it's not going to be like he's going to get all of it. But I mean, compare Robinson and Eckler to Gibbs, what's his name? Montgomery, just from a price perspective. I mean, you got two, and this game script's even a little bit better for the running backs than the Detroit game. So I do like both. Maybe I should play Eckler too. I hate these split backs, but Brian Robinson Jr. certainly looks good. The other side, sure. I mean, as you saw, Cooper Rush, listen, he's trying his best, right? He's slinging it around a little bit.
Yeah, he threw 55 times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, so
5K.
You have a situation where guys are going to throw 55 times, which is probably going to happen today also. And you have CeeDee Lamb, he might get 15 catches, and it's very possible. So I definitely like that side. I definitely like CeeDee Lamb. So for me, Dallas, CeeDee Lamb, if you can afford him. Washington, the quarterback, McLaurin, and Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I can just say the only way I'm playing Robinson as of right now or Lamb is in a stack because I don't want to play 30, which is this 30% means like in a higher buy-in, it's probably going to be like 40% plus. I just don't want to do that. As you say, it's the United States of America. I don't have to do anything. I don't want to. I don't have to do something. I don't have to play anything I don't want to.
But not only that, it's not as if he's the only option that's good this week.
Exactly. There's plenty. And also Eckler is, I think, an interesting pivot off of him, like right there. Why can't Eckler outscore him in this game? It's totally possible. Anyway, I don't even think you need to do that, but I'm just saying that I like I like what you mentioned. I like the idea of Daniels to McLaurin. I think there's a lot of games where we're really heavily focused on the running on one side and then CD on the other side. I just think you can flip the script and just play the passing angle in those games, and this is one of those games.
I'll tell you a couple of guys you could play. All right, we already talked about this a little bit, but again, it's maybe not quite as great of a play, but it's not that much worse given the ownership. So we're talking about Brian Robinson, who's probably going to get most of the work. Good game script, 5,600, 5,700. Is that what he is? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so a little worse game script, but we could go back and play Ramondre Stevenson at 5,900. All right, you could play not the best game script either, but you could play Tony Pollard at 5,800. You could play the guy you just said. You get maybe Rashad White,
Yeah.
5,400. Yeah, Bucky Irving's going to get work, but you know what? But so is Eckler, you know? So I don't know. I mean, and then if you really want to be gross, you go play Rico Dowdle at 5,500. Like there are guys. I mean, we're going to get to Denver. Javonte Williams is 5,200. Like there are guys that could, if they get lucky and fall and get a touchdown, they can outscore Brian Robinson really easily. So I agree with you. I think he's a good play, but at 30% owned, which is I actually do have him a little higher than actually I don't have him quite as high as A-Chain, but I guess he will be at the end of the day.
Yeah, and also with A-Chain, I just want to point out that Jalen Wright's gotten work around the goal line. So has Mostert. Just be a little bit like I would like to be underweight some of these trendy plays or whatever. Even though I love A-Chain and he could break off 2 plays that don't make all of that mean nothing, but I just don't think we have to do it. I think there's plenty of other ways to go.
You know, speaking of which, and we get to this next game, and I'm going to talk about Bo Nix in a second, but why not Javonte Williams at 5,200? You know, like okay, so they gave Esteen some work to do, but first of all, that game was blowout city. Okay, by the time Esteen even did anything, all right, and you have Javonte Williams who had 9 for 59, very efficient, and he had 4 freaking receptions in 5 targets, and he's 5,200. And they're favored by a little bit. What were they? 4-point favorites? I'm just guessing.
They're 7-point favorites.
They are 7.
They're 6 points.
Why is Javonte Williams that much worse than Brian Robinson? Just because it feels that way, but I don't know. I kind of like Javonte Williams, but then you have Bo Nix, who's play every week. I mean, really, and Cortland Sutton play every week. I'm not going to really get into any of these other Denver receivers. You could certainly do it. You could play Vele at 3,900 or whoever else, Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims and all these guys. But I don't know, maybe. As I talk about the Vegas guys, because the Vegas guys are all look good, right? They still do. I mean, Jacoby Myers, 5,100 looks good. Brock Bowers, 63, but still, I mean. So
40% ownership. What kind of madness is going on here?
With what?
40% ownership is a lot for any receiving per player.
On who?
On Brock Bowers. That's what Saberson's got him at.
Yeah, that's so weird. I have 14%.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it'll fine tune. We know these things is early in the week. It's a little bit tougher. I just think this Vegas thing is a hoax. I'm not buying any of it.
I think it's fake news.
I don't have any interest in any of it. Bowers I like as a player, but like, give me him at 14, fine. I'll play him over the field. If you tell me he's 40, I just won't play him at all. Denver's defense, I think, is legit. Like, I think this team is actually solid.
Yeah,
they sold me. I think Bo Nix is good, and I think he's very good. And I think you could play the passing game here. I'm not interested in the Williams personally. It is concerning to me that I see the same trend from this Denver team all the time. And it's great. It's working out in real life. It's just not for DFS. That you really are like. I mean, he had 9 carries last week. He just got there because he got the touchdown, and he had 4 catches. I don't think like Javonte Williams has like sold himself as like this clear number 1 running back. They're going to use McLaughlin. They're going to use Estime, and I think that Estime is the guy they're grooming. I think that's just my take. So I think when they get a big lead, that's the guy they go to, and I like them to have a big lead. I like them to win this game easily. You're going to have a ton of Broncos fans. Any game that's in LA or Vegas, you're just going to have a ton of Broncos fans. It's just the way it is. I like the Broncos to just absolutely dismantle them here. And you can play a Bo Nix stack with Sutton. I have no issue with that. I like Vele too. So I'm interested in the one-sided stack of Denver, and maybe I get 1 run back from Vegas. But this Vegas, Bowers and Myers and Minshew being the highest owned players of their position on the slate, I'm not buying it. Not for me. But I am buying this next game. I love this game. This is my other biggest.
San Francisco is freaking brutal, man. I mean, like,
which way though? They can't do anything. They can't stop anybody.
They just can't win. It's like so strange, And yeah, they can't blow anybody out. They can't win the close games. They're losing against Arizona. They're losing against Seattle. And it's like, yeah, they're just losing. So you know what that means? Close games. Close games are good.
Close games against teams that, as you mentioned last week, they tend to play in shootouts. And even though last week was a little different, it was a very weird game with the Bears. But Green Bay, you can put up some points here. I was surprised this total wasn't higher.
Yeah, so I like Purdy. I like the second the second act of Juwan Jennings. I mean, like is he the best receiver on the team? I'm afraid to tell Debo. He'll yell at me like I was a long snapper. But Jennings is freaking the man right now. I don't know what else to say. So I like him at 5,600. And sure, play Samuel, Pearsall, and what's Kittle? Kittle, he might be back. Number one, I like him if he's back. Yeah. Number two, it makes it a little worse for the other receivers for sure. But I definitely like him, and obviously McCaffrey remains a good play. And just remind me, like he had 14 fantasy points and without doing much of anything. You know what I mean? Like this is like his floor game. And so I'd go right back to him. So there's certainly nothing wrong with the workload. You know what I mean? Like it was fine by me. So Purdy, McCaffrey, Jennings would be the top connection for me. And then on the Green Bay side, I've said this a lot. I'm like, I don't know. I think San Francisco could put a good game together, and I'm like, but they just don't. I don't know what it is. Jacobs has been getting a lot of work. Just don't like playing running backs in San Francisco. And next thing you know, they always are getting there. I don't know. I'd like to play maybe the Green Bay passing game, but as usual, I don't know exactly who to play. But I definitely like the San Francisco side.
Yeah, I'm into both of it. I don't know who to play with Green Bay, but I'm going to take I'm seeing things from Christian Watson lately that I'm sort of a little bit interested in. I like all the receivers. That's the problem. It's like these guys are all good receivers. It's not like these are just like, they suck because they're not putting in fantasy points. There's just a lot of guys to spread the love. So it's hard to figure out the Green Bay. I do know I can play Josh Jacobs. I know I can play Christian McCaffrey. I know I can play both Purdy and Love. I just don't know which receivers I play with Love. But look, if all else fails, maybe Tucker Kraft. We go back to the 0-point Tucker Kraft again. I'm good with Jennings. I think this is the one game that I'll just be. Look, I think that's going to be the theme of my week. I'm going to be really overweight 3 games and pretty much not paying much attention to the rest of them, and just sort of let the ownership gives me what it wants. But it's going to be this game, obviously the Detroit game from earlier, and then this next game we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so I was about to kind of summarize before we got into this last game, which we're obviously going to get some of. We'll talk about the Arizona-Seattle game. San Francisco-Green Bay makes sense. The Indianapolis game, and then the two others are the other ones we talked about. I think the Denver-Vegas, specifically the Denver side, and also the Miami. I think. Mm-hmm. I think that makes some sense too. But Arizona-Seattle is just everything everything you want. You got dome. You got quarterbacks that could put up fantasy points. You got running backs that could put up fantasy points. You got receivers that could put up fantasy points. You even got on the Arizona side tight ends that could put up fantasy points. And this could bust 20-16. That stuff happens sometimes. But,
and then NFC West it does.
I'm not playing it that way. I'm playing this game. I'm playing this to go. And you know what you can do? You can play like some of these baseball games. You can play just either full game stack or zero. You know what I mean? You can certainly do that too. But I think this game can obviously can go off. And what's cool is you kind of know what you want to do. On the Seattle side for openers. Hold on, let's get the Seattle guys first. It's a little annoying that Metcalf is playing. Just makes these other guys a little less whatever, but they're all fine. Metcalf and Jigba. Lock it at 4,800, and it might have I used to say price and force. 4,800 is really cheap in a game that could score a lot of points. Fant, probably no thanks. I mean, in my game stacks, he's going to have to show up if he plays.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I'm not going to go crazy getting to him. And then obviously Kenneth Walker. He's always in contention to have one of the better games. He can get 25 sometimes, get 15 sometimes. He can do stuff. And then on the other side, Arizona, Connor, great play. Marvin Harrison Jr. seems pretty cheap actually at 6,100 in this spot. McBride 56 and Murray 62. I think this whole game is throw it up in the air and hope you get the right combinations.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at as well. It's interesting. The one thing we don't actually have is a dome, and the one thing that concerns me is that it looks like the weather is going to be a little bit nasty.
I keep thinking that Seattle plays in the Kingdom still.
No, I know, I know it's a rough. It also like, yeah, I get it. I totally, I get that all the time. I still do it with Minnesota in baseball. I'm like, how can we have weather issues in Minnesota?
Right.
But I like this whole thing, and like sort of like you said, I like some of every bit of it. My favorite play would be Smith and Jigba, but if he's really going to be more owned than Metcalf, I'll just switch it right back over to Metcalf. I don't really have a huge take on that one. I know we've seen the big games lately out of Smith and Jigba. We know Metcalf's awesome. I like this one a lot. I have it rated just behind San Francisco, Green Bay, and nobody's coming close to my Detroit, Indianapolis exposure. I'm going to be overweight on that one for sure.
Have you tried to like build stuff yet?
I haven't tried building. No. Oh, no, that's not true. I built one lineup on Monday. I like to build one lineup on Monday every week, and my first build was the Detroit stack. The Richardson stack with in that game. It's like Richardson, Downs, had Montgomery and Williams and Laporta from Detroit. I just went hammered that game, and I played McCaffrey in the later game, and that was most of what I did.
So in my first build here with the SaberSim stuff, I'm getting San Francisco, Washington, but they're considering that a stack. You know, when you're playing Daniels and Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
Seattle, Arizona. Not really getting. Maybe the Detroit guys are just too expensive.
Yeah, I think they're not showing up projection wise, so I'm that's why I like that even better. Except for Laporta showing up.
And then obviously you're getting some of this DeVito, what's his name, Neighbors combination. Yep. I mean, sure, why not?
Yeah.
That really could be tough. I don't want to say tough to fade, but that is a good spot. I mean,
it's a good matchup, but like we know what Tommy DeVito, like, you know, he could
run one in too.
Yeah, he could get to 18 or 16 or something like that. Like,
that's pretty good.
Well, for his price, that's fine. As long as no other quarterbacks are putting up 30s. Where I think the guys like Richardson, who are 5,600 only, I think he might put up 30 plus.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what I'm doing. But I get it. And you've got cheap Tua, you've got cheap Drake May. There's just not that much more.
Now is Tua under 6K?
He's 58.
Yeah.
I think I would rather gamble with those in those spots personally and just
find the 1,800 somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to lead you to a lot of Bears defense, so you got to be careful what your defenses you get.
No, definitely not. Definitely not going to lead me all the Bears defense.
Okay.
Definitely not happening. I'll tell you. I may as well say who my defenses are, like that are not the Bears. That would be the aforementioned Dolphins.
Yeah.
New England.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos against Vegas, like more expensive.
I love the Broncos.
Yeah, Broncos, expensive Texans, expensive Vikings. You want a cheapo? Oh, I got a cheapo for you. Play the freaking Giants.
Yeah, I like that actually.
Play the Giants against Baker in what could be not the greatest Sunday New York weather with the wind blowing around there.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good call. Anyway, we'll be live at 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, so please join us then. And good luck to everybody this week. Anything else, Sheets, before we get out of here?
No, I am going to only be around for a little bit for that, as I mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I'll be there for a little bit at least.
Okay, sounds good. All right, good luck, everybody.